This digital story aims to assess the Soviet seizure and consolidation of power in Poland. The first aspect to analyze is the establishment of Soviet control in Poland. The picture represents Franciszek Niepokolayski, an underground Polish military leader during his trial in 1947 to represent the Polish government and its opposition by the Soviets. In 1945, the Provisional Government of National Unity was established in Poland. It was supposed to unify the Polish communists and the government in exile. However, the government was corrupt and assured that positions were only given to loyal communists. For example, the top jobs in the Ministry of Internal Affairs were reserved exclusively for Communist Party members. Therefore, communists, many of which looked up to Soviets, were able to consolidate power in Poland through their high positions as they were able to control and censor the media. Also, Stalin arrested numerous non-communist leaders. For example, show trials were held to convict Polish military leaders of having plans to attack the Soviet Union. Many non-communists, regardless of if they were leaders or not, were imprisoned, and the Soviets were able to maintain their power in Poland as they arrested those that they perceived as threats or non-communists, leaving the loyal communists to listen to their commands. At Yalta in February 1945, Stalin had promised free elections. However, these were not held until January 19, 1947. Even then, the free elections were not still free, and were controlled by Soviets through a campaign of censorship, murder, and intimidation. This picture depicts a guard at a free election, indicating how the Soviets did have much influence over the fairness of the elections. For example, about 50,000 people were deported to Siberia before the elections, and 1 million were not able to vote because of one reason or another. Armed guards stood by the ballots to intimidate or threaten voters to vote for the Communist Party. Because of the Soviets' control over the elections, Boleslav Beirut, a Stalinist and communist who was trusted by the Soviets, was elected in Poland. Beirut could then fulfill Stalin's orders and replace those in the government with pro-Soviet communists. Though Beirut, the Soviets were able to maintain control in Poland. After Beirut's death in 1958, Władysław Gomułka, who was much more flexible, took power in Poland. Gomułka was much more popular with the Polish people, but because of him, interactions with the Soviets changed, which leads us to the next topic, which is the nature of the single-party state in Poland. This picture depicts hundreds of thousands of people gathering in Warsaw to listen to Gomułka speak. After the war, control of Poland was handed from the Soviet Red Army to Polish communists in support of the USSR. However, the Red Army remained in Poland after 1944, providing Stalin with absolute influence there during diplomatic negotiations such as Yalta and Potsdam. The USSR had come to completely rule over Poland's elections, economy, and military, which the West saw as a violation of both Yalta and Potsdam agreements. Soon communism was spread into Poland, and the agriculture was commonly collectivized. The Constitution of 1952 from the Soviets created many changes in legislature that made Poland more heavily influenced by Soviet communism. All citizens were guaranteed free healthcare. Education reform provided more schools and free education to all, which was popular among Polish people. The communists, however, filtered much of the content presented to the Polish during this time. Education only taught what was supported by the communists, and literature filtered out only what supported Marxist views. Soviet influence was well recognized and absolute. Secret police enforced their rule by eliminating those that dared oppose communist ideas. Occasional student uprisings, strikes, or protests were put down with military force. This picture is of the Polish government revealing their new laws. The next aspect to discuss is the changes to Polish domestic policies. After 1939, due to Soviet and German genocide, changes in countries' boundaries, migration, and the expulsion of ethnic peoples by the communist government of Poland, the country became an almost mono-ethnic society. After 1989, the right to free associated resulted in the establishment of approximately 200 ethnic organizations. There is legislation establishing the right to study and to be taught in one's native language. Likewise, minorities have the right to access mass media, including local public radio and television, and use their native language in broadcasting. A still controversial issue is the treatment of former communist government officials, especially the members of the secret police. Debate centers around the world are barring them from holding public office or positions of trust, and whether communist government officials who committed crimes should be held accountable now. The role of women was another huge shift in tradition of Poland. Traditionally, women's place was in the home, and her rule in household matters was absolute. However, the socialist government offered women opportunities for higher education and employment. In 1990, for every 100 males who completed higher education, there were 89 women. Ideally, the domestic unit is a three-generation extended family consisting of the married couple, kids, and the husband's parents. However, now there is a choice for men and women, as love plays a more important role and divorce is not as difficult. The domestic unit stays in tradition, but is more flexible. Education is now more important than ever. By 1989, the country had 10 universities and a number of specialized schools geared to the needs of agriculture, industry, medicine, and teaching. But religion is also an important role in Polish life. There's a hierarchy of priests, monks, and nuns, as appropriate in the Roman Catholic Church, along with ministers of other Christian denominations. On rare occasions, one may still encounter witches and fortune tellers for entertainment. Other changes that are worth noting are the changes in art, as before 1989, art was heavily subsidized by the state, but demands were made on artists to produce propaganda materials. In addition, art was subject to political censorship. With the fall of socialism, both state support censorship, except in certain areas such as pornography, have disappeared. Consequently, artists are more free politically, but have fewer resources. There was censorship of publications and restrictions placed on travel and research topics. Topics of research were circumscribed, and certain areas could not be investigated. Since 1989, the political constraints have been lifted, and the main problem is due to funding for research and publication. The Soviet seizure and consolidation of power in Poland was not taken lightly by the Polish citizens. In fact, many of them opposed the seizure and occupation of their country by the Soviet Union. For example, the Soviet Union insulted the Polish citizens when they were enlisted the help of pro-Soviet Polish troops. The citizens believed that the troops fighting in the name of Poland should feel nationalistic ties to Poland and not the Soviet Union. They believed that the Soviet Union was being insensitive to the needs of the Polish by ignoring their wishes and going with troops that would benefit from the needs of the Soviet Union. This, coupled with the still fresh wounds left from the Katyn massacre depicted in the picture, where approximately 22,000 Polish officers and soldiers were massacred at the hands of the Soviets, made the Polish people wary of the occupying Soviet Union. Despite the growing rage and discomfort of Polish citizens, the Soviets cut wages and created harsh working conditions. These terrible conditions led to strikes, which led to riots in June of 1956. Poland came to criticize the Soviet methods and influence. The destabilization of Poland came to a climactic turning point in the string of events which resembled a revolution. The Soviet leader, Nikita Khrushchev, wanted to stop these riots as peacefully as possible, so he removed all of the Stalin-era leaders and replaced them with pro-communist leaders, most importantly, Władysław Gomulka. Gomulka openly opposed the Soviet method and began a policy of de-Stalinization. He also promised the people work reforms and soon was executing huge social reforms which led to more personal freedoms. While the Polish people may have been happy, Khrushchev was not. The personal freedom granted to the people made him uncomfortable, and that led to him pressuring Gomulka to stop the reforms. Gomulka did not back down from Khrushchev's threats, and warned that he would even go as far as to arm the more than willing Polish workers so they may fight back. Khrushchev backed down and discovered that, with time, Gomulka was taking away the newly received rights, along with the rights they already had in place. Enraged and deprived of simple human rights, the Polish people fought back, striking and rioting at every chance they got. Centered in the city of Gdańsk, the opposition to the government was strong and led by Lech Walesa, who was unemployed at the time. Slowly, they began building rights. Soon they had received economic and political rights, like the right to strike and the right to form free trade unions. This picture reveals Władysław Gomulka. Soon after gaining the right to form free trade unions, a union called Solidarity was formed. This union became extremely popular, gaining around 10 million members. The Soviet Union saw the popularity and power of Solidarity and saw it as a threat, and arrested thousands. However, many still supported the Union far more than they ever would support the Soviet Union.